Hello, friends and gamers. My name is Jinx, and welcome to Operation Hats. This is January 1942, the German 12th turn. Germany is still struggling. It's trying to pivot itself from a strategy focusing on westwards towards the oceans, towards submarines and convoy raiding, towards invasion of the British Islands, towards scrambling to defend in the east from the mighty Russian armies that are marching down their throats towards Europe, and focusing itself also from defense in the west, from the British Islands, from the British forces there, and the Americans coming bearing down across the Atlantic with sizable forces and a mighty fleet coming this direction as well. Germany is struggling to find the resources to match them on both sides. Collectively, I think they are outnumbered the value from both the Russians, Americans, and the British and the Free French by almost a 2-to-1 factor, if memory serves. I think we have something like, well, I can't remember, 80, I think it is, 80, maybe 90, and the collective forces on both sides is quite substantial, like 120 or something like that. So we are quite outmatched when it comes to resources. The reason Germany is scrambling is also because early on in the game, roughly around turn number 5, they reached out, the Russian forces, Russian leadership reached out to the Germans, the Axis in general, proposing some sort of an agreement wherein they would pursue other avenues of interest towards India, capturing some territories there perhaps, towards Africa, looking good on that front as well, and also they expressed interest in South America, Uruguay, building up forces here and some force. Now, because I like alternative history, I went along with it, although I did warn the Russians saying that, hey, that's a hard way to get victory points to win the game. But with that in mind, I started building up the German Navy and built up 3 battleships, 3 heavy cruisers, and a couple turns later, that treaty fell apart. The Bratislav protocols fell apart, and now I'm faced with a bunch of my resources put in a different direction and not enough on land. So instead of being a little bit deeper into Russian territory, with my initial goal up until the proposal to be conducting a very quick and efficient war, taking out France early, Yugoslavia early, and then charging into Russian territory. From that, it pivoted towards focusing still on the British Islands, and then now pivoting back towards defense on all fronts. But normally at this point in 1942, I like to already have a good chunk of Russian territory in my grasp, and maybe the Russians are starting to push me back, but I at least have Ukraine at that point. But yes, it's quite unfortunate where it's at, but yeah, it makes things fun, makes things interesting. So that's kind of what's going on right now. Let's give a bit of a turn summary of what happened in the previous turn. In the previous turn, the Germans declared war on the Netherlands, capturing this territory, and flipping all of the Dutch East Indies into British hands. They also declared war on Istanbul, or Turkey for that matter, capturing Istanbul in anticipation of blocking the Russians from capturing Istanbul and being a threat on this flank. They also declared war on the Russians and captured a lot of the bordering territories, southern Ukraine, western Ukraine, Lithuania, and some Finland territories as well. So that's kind of what they've got going on. Now, it was Operation Barbarossa, and so that meant the Russians could only react by attacking one territory back. So they didn't recapture much territory, although they had plenty of resources to do so. The German Africa Corps is in Cameroon, in I guess it'd be center-west Africa, somewhere there, and kind of hanging out there, not doing too much of anything. And we're strengthening our position in Iraq, hoping to hold out against the Russian forces here. And apart from that, we were just defending our forces, defending our resources here in central Romania and Poland and the like. Nothing much occurring on the Western Front just yet, but it's looking pretty skinny on this flank, and I think it'll be a matter of time before the mighty forces of the Americans come crashing into us and really devastating what we have here. So we have to hold on for all what we're worth in this theater. Now, the Russians, for their part, used a bunch of stored up resources, 100 IPP I think they had collected, and built plenty of troops on all areas that they could. They also went ahead and recaptured southern Ukraine. They were debating on going after Istanbul or Bulgaria, Romania, and at the end of the day it was just slightly a little bit too powerful that they didn't want to risk it, and so they went instead and got southern Ukraine in anticipation for a push towards central Romania and the victory points that therein lie. Like, this is a pretty high producing territories for the Germans. Collectively, this is worth what? $6 right here, all of Romania and Bessarabia, and the bonus that it provides, so it's well worth going this direction. So that's kind of what the Russians are up to, but like I said, plenty of troops being built on the map. Heavy tank, medium armor, mechanized, 2 Katyushas, some more mechanized. Things are looking pretty grim in the face of this mighty force that they have present here. The Russians were pretty busy on the eastern flank. They aligned Mongolia. They captured Suyan from the Japanese. They invaded Manchukuo as well. So things are looking pretty difficult for the Japanese as they're trying to fend off what the Russians are throwing at them. They're faced with the Russians in the north, and through China, the CCP are quite strong as well. Perhaps they're going to go after Shenxi here. And then, of course, the KMT forces as well. The KMT recently launched an attack into Kwangtung, and didn't manage to take out these two fighters despite sending in 3 anti-aircraft guns. They were not quite strong enough to do that. Well, actually, they weren't lucky enough to do that. Otherwise, Japan would be less a couple fighters in that area. So perhaps Japan should move them a little further away from the front, but they've probably got a couple ideas up their sleeve. A big thing that occurred on the Japanese turn is prior to the Japan's turn starting, the British Commonwealth declared war on them, preventing the Japanese from using their surprise strike and capturing Sydney. So instead, the Japanese had to take a consolation prize of capturing New Zealand, but Sydney is still an unattainable goal, especially as they strengthen their position there. The Japanese also captured New Guinea for $1. They captured West Timor for $1, Borneo for $2, Sumatra for $2. So they've collected a little bit of money. Celebes for $1, Hong Kong for 2. So they increased their income a little bit from these territories, and there's going to be more coming down as well. $2 here, $3 there, another 2 for Malaya. What does that make? 2, 3, 4, 5. $5 there total. The French territories. The French didn't declare war on them, so they could probably pick up those territories as well. So they've got quite a few things going on across all theaters. So looking pretty interesting. The Japanese are hard pressed now that the FEC have come out of Calcutta and are now in Bengal, maybe forcing the Japanese in Burma to retreat from this position. We'll have to see how that goes for them. It seems to be right now that New Zealand is out of the picture as they have a huge amount of resources present here. It's going to be difficult for the Japanese to do too much about them. Excuse me. It is 1:30 in the morning right now. Goodness. British Malaya is still pretty strong with a sizable force here as well. And now we turn our attention to, well, the Americans over here have basically evacuated much of the Pacific. They've got a couple forces here and there, but it's minor speed bumps. And my suspicion is the American fleet is going to move over to the Atlantic to join the other rest of the American fleet on that theater. It seems to be like a kill Germany first strategy, but perhaps I'm pessimistic. The Americans lend lease to Anzac, an anti-aircraft gun, to Free French mechanized infantry, and I guess they couldn't send anything to the KMT because they're kind of blockaded in there. But the Free French, for their part, seem to be content in holding on to the Italian victory point here, recaptured Nubia from the Italians, captured Belgian Congo, and have a strong position in Tanganyika, from which they could move forces down south to South Africa or secure their victory point in Abyssinia. We'll have to see how that goes, but they're doing quite well for themselves so far. Now, the British, for their part, saw an opportunity. Because the Turkish destroyer over here became British, suddenly the Germans didn't take that into calculations, and the German transport present in the Tyrrhenian Sea needed to be protected with a German destroyer, which meant that the Italian fleet in Sea Zone M2 was absent a German destroyer and faced with an additional British destroyer. So when the British decided to send the Royal Navy from Sea Zone, what is this, A27, over to engage our forces here in M2, it was a vicious struggle between the British Navy and the Italian Navy, and the British had the upper hand. Superior fleetmanship, control their forces, and gunnery allowed them to score a mighty victory, and they have 4 ships surviving, but they took some heavy losses as well. They did sink a bulk of they did sink the entirety of the Italian forces, but they sent 2 aircraft from Abyssinia, a couple aircraft from A27, and I think they might have had an aircraft in Gibraltar as well. So something like 4 aircraft and a sizable fleet here. We're outnumbered considerably, and so we lost our fleet quite handily. The British also helped secure their position up in Britain and doing quite well for themselves there. I think last turn was a turn where we launched our forces from Scotland and went all the way to drop off troops in southern Finland. So they resecured their positions here. Did they? They must have. Yeah, they must have. All right. The Italians, on their turn, they sent their fleet up here to Istanbul to help secure this position and free up the Germans to move their forces throughout the rest of the Baltic areas here, Balkan areas as well, secure these positions. But they also sent an attack outside the gates of Gibraltar to A44, engaged the 3 battleships there, and transport, and they took 3 losses, 2 submarines plus a fighter, but they took out 3 British battleships and a transport. So that tipped the balance of power, or at least the balance of tonnage lost in this in turn number 11, in favor of the Italians sinking more British than the British sunk Italians. I would say more tonnage, or more IPP sunk, I suppose, something like that. So that's what occurred in T11. The Americans, for their part, are revving their engines in anticipation of crossing the Atlantic. They have 4 transports here ready to go, 2 strap bombers, a bunch of infantry, just a sizable force ready to cross the Atlantic. Now, hopefully we have a turn or two, excuse me, before they cross the Atlantic and before they show up. Now, they are at, I believe it is 57, so they need to get $6 to get to wartime income. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wartime income, which is quite doable unless they roll really poorly. So we could expect the Americans are going to come knocking quite quickly, unless of course the Japanese instigate some sort of fight between them, and perhaps they will and capture the Philippines, but perhaps they won't. Perhaps they'll hold off a little bit in anticipation for holding off the American income 1 extra turn. It might be worthwhile doing that. I mean, there's some minor gains here to be had, but overall there's nothing too substantial, perhaps, that they can really gain from any large battle. Anyways, we'll move on past that point and move on to the next thing, turning to our German turn and what we're up to. So, first of all, I wanted to cover this here. We have here the British, or all the collected incomes of everybody. The Allies collectively have $99. The total Allied income have $99. The total Axis income is 146, and the Comintern is 57. Collectively, the Axis, the enemies of the Axis, so the Comintern and the Allies, have 156, so quite a bit, and we have 146. So the Allies and the Comintern have $10 more than the Axis have. So that's kind of how things are looking there. All right, now turning our attention to the tech. We had 4 dice. We succeeded twice with radar, getting to stage 1, and amphibious doctrine to stage 3. So that's looking pretty good for us. And for our purchases, we have $76 to spend. And with that, we got 2 militia upgrades. We got 6 infantry. We got 9 infantry, 6 militia. Our blue division, this is the nationalist infantry. They scored on the recruitment roll. They got 4 anti-aircraft guns. They got 1 destroyer. They're starting on fortification. This is the equivalent, so that this calculator calculates automatically. And they're starting another fortification to give to the Italians. And this is the infantry they're sending in as Lend-Lease. So these things boxed in aren't actually being put on the board. It's just to calculate the value. And so with the discount for this destroyer, we're at $76 to spend on the next turn. So that's looking okay for us. Starting with our combat moves now. Our seaplane is going to go 2 spaces, 1, 2, to try and engage these Soviet subs. And I have 3 heavy cruisers and a torpedo boat destroyer trying to engage those units as well. Now it's up to the Soviets. I haven't asked them yet, but it's up to the Soviets when they watch this video if they want these subs to unsubmerge and attack these ships or not. My suspicion is not. The main purpose of sending them here in a combat move, apart from, I mean, if they came out of the water, that'd be okay for us as well, but is to blockade this shipyard that I only realized late in the game is in this position here on the border between those 2 regions. So I think I need to have a blockading force in both those areas. From southern Finland to Helsinki, we're sending in some minor forces, 3 airborne, 1 infantry, 1 heavy armor. We are also sending in an attack here into Akdeniz, 2 fighters from Romania, an infantry from Syria, and an infantry from Istanbul. And this tactical bomber is going from Central Romania. And now let's calculate that out. 1, 2, 3, 4 to M2. A destroyer from Tyrrhenian Sea, medium bomber from Turin or northern Italy. And then 2 fighters are coming in from Normandy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they have 1 more move left over. And these 2 subs are coming across to engage this fleet as well. At that point, if we're successful with this, the Germans will have a bigger navy. Actually, they already do have a bigger navy than the British, but yeah, so that works out good. Hopefully we can take them out. All right, so those are our 3 attacks. Let's get started with this northern attack. And unfortunately, I didn't prepare any dice. So we're starting with our seaplane here, rolling out a 3 or less. 11. So that's a miss. And now we go to this fight here. Now I'm going to keep the enemy at blues. That's a pretty good dice roll. And now, if I'm correct, their city is blockaded. Otherwise, I wouldn't attack if it wasn't blockaded. So there's a militia rolling a yellow. And for us, we're rolling 3 infantry at, let's say the infantry will be gray, perhaps. And then we have 1 red dice here for the heavy armor going in. Sorry, I guess we get 1 more dice. All right. Here we go. Let's roll these dice out. 1 dice fell off the table. It is a 2 up here. It did show a 2. But I don't think that counts. If it falls off the table, it doesn't count. 5. So we scored 1 hit. Now the enemy, for their part, seeing as they're surrounded, they get -1. So 3 dice at 3 and 1 dice at 1. 1 hit. So we lost 1 unit and they lost their militia. Now we go on to round 2. 2 hits there. And the enemy, in response, no hits for the enemy. So an 8, because our heavy armor rolls at an 8, I believe. I better double check that. Yeah, Tiger's rolling at 8. With target selection too to boot, so that's kind of nice. I didn't actually notice what I previously had, but it doesn't really matter. They missed, so 2 of them over here are gone. And now we go on to round 3. No hits, 7, 12. Okay, in this case, they might score us a hit with a 7. All right, we go on to the next round. Scored 1 hit, and then they on that end and scored a 10. So we managed to destroy their forces, capture Helsinki, and I think this is one of the only ones where we're actually scoring any points. I guess we'll take off an airborne, I think. And there we have it. That's that 1 battle done. Okay, I'm going to quickly adjust our income because, like I said, I don't think anything else moves. While I'm at it, I'm going to move all the rest of this. We've narrowed the margin slightly. All right. Now for this attack here in this southern area. Let's grab some dice. Some of these dice are nicely used. Okay, we have 2 infantry. And 2 fighters. The grays are the infantry, the red are the fighters. 1 hit, and that's all we need. And the enemy militia rolling a 2. Pretty slim chance that they'll succeed. But we took off 1 unit here. That's not what we wanted to copy. Primarily so we open up this this railway line between these 2 territories. All right, now the last and final battle over here. So I think I might just roll everything more or less separately. So these 3 will stand in for our advanced subs plus a destroyer. These 2 will be for our fighters. And then I have a medium bomber will be a blue. You know what? I'll just forget it if I do it all together. So here we have fighters and infantry. Fighter 4s. These 3 gray dice are at 4s and these 2 are at 6s. 2 hits. That's more than I expected. Well, no, actually not. 4, 4, 4 is 12. This should be 12, so it should be 2 hits out of this roll. Okay, and then I have my tactical target selection. There's a hit and medium bomber. 1, so 4 hits total. Nice. And now the enemy has 3 dice at 6 and 1 dice at 4. Oof. 3 hits. Well, that's to be expected. Great rolling on their part for sure. Okay, so a vicious one turn struggle there, but mutual wipeout there. But yeah, definitely they rolled way above the average of what they should have. They should have only gotten 2 hits at max. Yeah, and they got 3. So dice do tend to float around a little bit. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. I've been noticing that a few times where the dice. Well, anyways, there's some battles that seem pretty crucial, like here, that I in Cape Town that I did quite well on, and the opponent did quite poorly on. So it's one of those things. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This tactical bomber can come back here. And these 2 fighters must go to Sardinia. And this medium bomber is going to come out to that area. I might still rethink this tactical bomber. 1, 2, 3, 4. I might park this down here. I'll wait a little bit and think about it some more. All right, starting in on our non-combat moves. I'll start on the north side here. From Lapland to Kola, 1 infantry. This tactical bomber is going to go 1, transport is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, pick up an infantry, 5, 6, 7, and go to Bessarabia with 1 infantry. Great. Now we have over here, this coastal defense ship is going to go into port over here. And this fleet is going to go into port over here. And that fleet is 3 battleships and 3 transports. This infantry is going to come up to Denmark. This infantry from Berlin is going to Western Germany. This one from Western Germany to Belgium. This medium armor over to Eastern Germany. This guy from Eastern Germany to Poland. And these 4 dudes to Dolnolasky. 1 from Bohemia to Slovakia. Let's see. I have 2 infantry coming across to Normandy. I have 1 infantry from Bavaria to Alsace-Lorraine. Trying to think of what else I need to do. Yeah, well, that's going to be a tough battle, but whatever. It's what it is. All right, so I'm going to send this fighter all the way to central Romania. These 2 fighters in Akdeniz are going to come to central Romania again. I'll get to that mess a little bit later, but I think it takes care of all this. Good, 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 good. All right. Looking over here, we're going to send from Western Ukraine to Bessarabia, from East Poland to Bessarabia. These guys here are going to go to Bessarabia as well. Going to make a big party zone here. Oops. Hold on, I think. Lock that. All right, let's see. Did I get them all? I feel like I didn't. Okay, I was going to rail this one guy to here's to this here's group A. Gonna straighten these puppies out. I'm kind of unbalanced here, so let's shift this northwards. Might get a little crowded here. Sorry guys, I know this is general housekeeping and it's not that interesting. Okay, anti-aircraft gun. So transport there, good, good, good. Now these guys are all going to come over here as well. It's 4 mechanized, 1 light armor. These 3 guys from Bulgaria are going to come north to central Romania, from Istanbul to Romania. These 3 guys from Istanbul to Bulgaria. Yeah. This seaplane is going to come back to Western Germany. Okay. Feel like I'm missing something. Okay, over here. Infantry and artillery going to come to southern Iraq. Oh, and this infantry from Upper Egypt to Lower Egypt. And then I have some units here. This sub is probably going to stay in I-4. And this battle cruiser is going to go into port over here in Egypt. And this submarine is going to come to 1, 2, 3 over to Tanganyika in I3. And then I have a transport over here. It's going to load up a couple dudes and going to go 1, 2, 3 and go into port over here as well. We're going to drop off one guy in Syria though, and one guy's going to be dropped off in Lower Egypt. This airborne is going to be scooched across by rail up there. Is he? Nah, he's not. I gotta drop off both infantry over here. They need a solid defense there for the Italians, I think. Okay. I think that's it on this front. I can't think of anything else that needs to be done. Don't want to mix things up. Okay, let me... Oh, a couple more rails. From Belgium, a Tiger is going to come up to Bessarabia. So that's 2 rails over there. One from, well, whatever area, Paris, I think, goes there. And one from over there is going to go to Romania. Yeah. So really shoring up the defenses there. And I think that's it for all of our combat moves, except our aircraft. Let me give this a quick think. I'm gonna, if it's okay, pause for a second. Okay, we're back at it. I'm gonna drop off this tactical bomber over in Tobruk. Still has 2 spaces to go. He had 2 spaces left over to go. All right, and now we go to the place unit phase, I believe. Okay, this might get a little confusing, so I'm only going to grab this stuff for now, and then the rest of it I'll sort out a little bit later. Okay, put him right here in the ocean. This infantry here is going to be upgraded. Delete that. We're going to place a militia here. Sorry, that militia was upgraded and replaced with that. Likewise, in northern Iraq, we're going to replace it with an infantry. That deletes that one. In Syria, we're going to build an infantry there. And then we have a few more militia to spend. In Bulgaria, in Romania, in Bessarabia, and then we have 2 more in Warsaw and in East Poland. Then we have our blue division gets placed in Berlin. And now let's grab our anti-aircraft guns. Gonna build an anti-aircraft gun in Istanbul. I'm gonna build one in Romania. I'm going to build one in Warsaw. And I'm gonna build one in Paris. Okay. You know what? Instead of Bulgaria, I'm going to build one in Paris. This militia in Paris. No. I'm going to build it in Picardy and move the infantry to Paris. If that's okay, to kind of do a little switcheroo there, if that's okay. All right. The nationalist infantry will go over here. And then we have our remaining units. So we're going to build one in, we already did those areas, so Bohemia perhaps? Two, three. Yeah. I don't know, it's a tough spot because I have to try to defend on both sides. So we'll build 5 here. Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, but that's what we'll do right there. Okay, and that basically concludes. Oh, you know what? We still have a couple of units here. We still have a destroyer and the beginnings of a fortification. So I'm going to grab an Italian roundel and place it over here. Right there. And as I understand it, I don't need to declare where it goes. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to delete this stuff here. But I do have to declare where the German one goes. But I will duplicate this one. Put it here. And I'll grab these and put them on the board. Okay, now I'll put the Italian one over here. And the German destroyer is going to be built in port over here. And then I'm going to start the the Parisian fortification. Is it going to be Parisian? I think it will. Over here. That's under construction. Ah, I just deleted it. Goodness. I'm a fool. Did I delete it again? Goodness gracious. Alright, let's try this again. Are you serious? Alright guys, sorry about that. I somehow managed to delete the table. But in case you didn't know it, there's another table underneath this table. That's kind of the way it goes. So let me just pause this and correct for it because it's going to take a couple seconds. All right, we're back at it. So we set up our fortification here in Paris that we're going to begin to build. Yeah, I think that's it. So as an added bonus, we also get the Maginot Line started. And we thought we were going to get last turn, but we didn't have the qualifications met. So we're going to build it over here facing Sea Zone 821. And that is essentially it here for our boys. So yeah, there's still a chance the enemy will get it, of course. Let's see, 6, 6, 6, another 6. So 2 hits, plus those 2. So, you know, they'd take about 3 casualties, 3 hits, let's say, which would wipe out whatever forces that they would have available. They have 4 units that they could drop off, and they'd be suffering double casualties. So I don't think it's likely that they're going to try to hit us next turn. All right, that is about it for our forces here for the German turn. Now we go to collect income. Collect income is pretty straightforward for us. We have 65 plus 10, so 75 bucks. 75 bucks to spend. Because the enemy captured a bit of our territory. So we're $1 less than we had last turn, despite picking up 1 territory. It's just them's the breaks, as they say. All right, gentlemen, thank you all for watching, and I will see you on the next one. The next one up is the esteemed 5-star general. We'll see what he has to offer us. Maybe he's going to launch an all-out attack somewhere, someplace that might do us some damage. Thanks all. Talk to you later. Cheers.